Okay, so suppose it's the case then that Descartes is considering this idea, well, what about 2 plus 3 equals 5? Is this certain? And this is when he brings up the idea of the evil demon. Now, here's the way he puts it. He doesn't actually address the idea of an evil demon at first. At first he says this. What if it's the case that God has made the universe or the world in such a way that I'm somehow systematically deceived? Not just in terms of my senses, not just in terms of being in a dream or even a dream inside of a dream, etc. But that God has set up the world in which I think things like 2 plus 3 equals 5, but in reality, 2 plus 3 equals something else. 2 plus 3 equals 7 or 10 or elephant or something which is unfathomable. What if God has set up the world in such a way that I am just systematically deceived even about the truths of mathematics? It seems as though that is a possibility. But then he takes that back. And he says, well, I don't want to suggest that God would actually set up the world in this way. And there's a reason for that. It's because traditionally in Judeo-Christian sense, God is seen as being all good. Sometimes we'll call this omnibenevolent. He is all loving and all good. And so it's not the case, Descartes says, that God would deceive me in such a way as this. So I don't want to suspect that God might do this, but nonetheless, what if? And now it's important to understand what he means by this. He doesn't actually think that there's an evil demon. This isn't Satan in any sense. He doesn't mean that. He's just asking, well, what if? Hypothetically, there were this evil demon with this kind of godlike immense power to systematically deceive me about even mathematical truths like 2 plus 3 equals 5. Maybe in reality it's different. It seems as though if that were the case, and again, he's looking for just any way to doubt this. If that were the case, then even the truths of mathematics might not be certain. There's just a shred of doubt. And so if there's a shred of doubt, we know that by this method, he has to throw out that possibility, that even math can't serve as a kind of foundation for knowing anything. By the end of meditation 1, he's now placed himself in a very difficult position. It could be the case that an evil demon is deceiving him, at least hypothetically. And it seems as though by the end of meditation 1, he's not really certain of anything at all. Okay, so that is the first meditation. It's in the second meditation, and we're only going to get to part of it in this first half of the week, where after a night's sleep, Descartes again takes up this problem of what can be known. And he starts off near the beginning, he says, what if it's the case that the only thing I can be certain of is that I can't be certain about anything at all? And it seems as though that would lead us toward that kind of skeptic that I was discussing last time. But in fact, Descartes comes across what he takes to be the foundation for all of knowledge, including his knowledge, but it'll end up being the foundation for all knowledge if he's right. And so I want to express it this way. It is this very famous idea. You've probably heard it. Cogito ergo sum, or I think, therefore I am. And so what does this mean? How is this the kind of foundation or certainty? Well, it seems as though anytime I think, it has to be the case that I actually exist. It follows necessarily, in the same kind of sense that we were saying those LSAT problems, those answers follow necessarily from the conditions of that setup. And here's one way of trying to understand this. Because we need to understand not just the idea in itself, but how it answers that evil demon scenario. He has to get by that somehow. So here's the first idea. Even though it's always translated, I think, therefore I am, it's important to note he means this in a very active sense. Insofar as I am thinking, currently thinking, and going through the process of thought, I therefore must exist. It's not just that I have the capacity to think, it's that I am thinking. But here's how it gets by the evil demon. So it's an active, conscious thought. Well, there's two ways, I want to get at two different ways of understanding the same point. Here's one, because they coincide. Suppose the evil demon were deceiving me in the way just suggested. Nonetheless, if the evil demon were deceiving me, the evil demon would have to be deceiving something. One doesn't just deceive, one deceives someone. And if one is deceiving someone, if the evil demon is deceiving someone, then it has to be the case that I am the object of that deception. Object. And so, insofar as I think of this evil demon possibility as possibly deceiving me, I nonetheless would have to exist in order to be deceived. And so that's one half of it. I would have to exist in order to be deceived. Here's the other half. He says, well, it can never be the case that insofar as I think that I'm something, the evil demon can bring it about that I'm nothing. Insofar as I think I am. And one way of putting that is to say, as I'm going through this procedure of doubting as much as I possibly can, there's something that I can't doubt. I can't doubt that I am doubting. In order to try to doubt that I am doubting, it must be the case that I am doubting. And if I'm doubting, I have to be thinking. It seems as though there's no way to get around that thought. And that it must, therefore, be the case. And so, insofar as I can't doubt that I'm doubting, it seems that I have to be the one who am the author and the subject of these actions of thinking. And so insofar as I am both the object and the subject coinciding in this act of conscious, cognitive thought, I have to exist. In one way or another. Even if everything else around me, even if everything that the sensory world or my sense perceptions try to tell me about the world, even if those are still doubtable, I still exist while I'm thinking. And so that in itself, right here, is the certain foundation, which is beyond all doubt, a kind of foundation from which the rest of knowledge can be built, at least on Descartes' idea. Now that's the majority of everything that I want to go over this week. With the rest of meditation 2, he's going to say some things about this I and what it means. And we'll get to there soon enough. But to finish off this first series of videos, I do want you to consider that even this foundational move, even this has been challenged by some other philosophers. And so I've given you one kind of challenge from this philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche. And so if you look at the other handout that I've uploaded for this week, it says Nietzsche, Beyond Good and Evil, sections 16 and 17. So if we look at that for just a moment. So if you pull up this handout and look at it, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but in here, Friedrich Nietzsche has some criticisms and concerns and worries about this kind of move from René Descartes and from related philosophers. Now, you can tell by Nietzsche's writing that it's very caustic, it's very different than the way that Descartes is writing his meditations. So let me just read a few ideas. There are still some harmless self-scrutinizers who think that there are immediate certainties. As, for example, I think, or in this other guy's case, Arthur Schopenhauer, the superstition I will. As if perception could grasp its object purely and nakedly as the thing in itself without any falsification on the part of the subject or of the object. But I shall repeat 100 times over that the immediate certainty, like absolute knowledge in the thing in itself, contains a contradiction, a logical inconsistency between a noun and its modifier. It's time people freed themselves from these words. If I analyze the process expressed by the proposition, I think I get a series of audacious assertions that would be difficult, if not impossible, to prove. For example, that I am the one who's thinking, that there has to be something doing the thinking, that thinking is an activity and an effect on the part of a being who is thought of as a cause, that an I even exists. And finally, that we by now understand clearly what is designated as thinking, that I know what thinking is. For if I had not already decided it for myself, how could I determine that what is going on is not willing or feeling? In short, saying I think assumes that I'm comparing my present state with other states that I experience in myself, thereby establishing what it is. And because of that reference back to another knowledge, there is, at least for me, no immediate certainty here. And let me just talk about one more part real fast. I'll just read one more part. If you look at 17, as regards the superstitions of logicians, I never tire of underlining a quick little fact that these superstitious people are reluctant to admit. Namely, that a thought comes when it wants to, and not when I want it to. And so it's falsifying the facts to say that the subject I is the condition of the predicate think. And there's more here. And so, as we finish this first part, you might respond, you might blog about or create a video dealing with different ideas in this first meditation and a half. You might ask yourself, well, is his concern about the senses a good concern? Or what about the dream scenario or the evil demon scenario? Or who seems to be right in this case? Is Descartes right that I think therefore I am is really a piece of certain knowledge? Or how could you rephrase or clarify Nietzsche's remarks about the cogito and about what that means? How could you clarify his criticisms in your own words so maybe you can better understand it, or maybe your classmates or peers or others could understand it? And so in thinking about these the first meditation and the first half of the second meditation, I think those are some of the questions you might consider, the different moves that are made throughout the meditations. Okay, we'll leave it there, and we'll pick up in meditation 2 for the next half of the week. Thank you.